Team Week 5, Golf Course Setup and Tournament Preparation. This is the week of the Member Guest Tournament. Therefore, we're going to put our discussion on irrigation on hold, and we'll continue that next week. This week, I want everyone to focus on the details and cleaning up everything you've already learned. This is going to be a shorter video because I would also like everybody to listen and watch the greens mowing demonstration. This week we'll be introducing double cutting, which I'll discuss at the end of this show. And I want everybody to be clear on the procedure prior to that amendment. I'm going to briefly discuss the parameters of hole location and tee marker setup. This is specific to Laurel Creek, but also it draws from USGA regulations. The rules for hole location. The hole must be 4 1/4 inches in diameter and a minimum of 4 inches deep, and the cup must also sit 1 inch below the putting surface. So our cup cutter obviously meets these regulations, so using that tool properly will achieve both of these regulations. Now, the actual location of the hole, you look at the USGA Handicap Manual Rule 15.3 for your best interpretation of what the hole location should include. So that rule designates that good judgment should be used in deciding what will give fair results. Obviously, that's open to some level of interpretation. So there is further clarification that the USGA recommends that holes should be placed at least 4 paces from any edge of the putting green. And additionally, the green's design should be considered and also the type of approach shot that's required. So, for example, when a long iron approach is expected, the hole should be placed farther from the edge of the green. Conversely, if a higher lofted club will be used, then that hole can be placed closer to the edge of the putting surface. In my opinion, one of the most helpful suggestions with respect to hole location is the fact that a player above the hole should be able to stop the ball at the hole. And achieving that generally includes having a 2-foot radius around the hole that should be nearly level as possible and of uniform grade. So if you're looking around on the green for a place to cut a new cup, somewhere that has a solid patch of level ground, and if the player is standing above the hole, as in he has a downhill putt, there should be adequate room that if the ball were to go past the hole, it won't continue 15, 20 feet away from the cup. So that's what's meant by the player should have the ability to stop the ball at the hole. Essentially saying if the player strikes the ball properly, the ball will stop within 2 feet of the hole. Additionally, from a variation standpoint, we want to make sure there's a balance of hole locations with respect to left, right, central, front, and back positions. So we don't want to go out and accidentally place all the pins in the top left corner of a green, or all the pins directly in the center of a green at the most central position. So variation in that will increase golfer satisfaction as well. Let's look at an example using number 4 at Laurel Creek. So number 4 is a par 4, therefore the general strategy for scoring is driver, second shot to the green, hopefully with an opportunity for a birdie putt. I'm going to point out some considerations for each of the marked pin positions. So location A, long drivers will likely be selecting high lofted clubs for their approach shot, because if you hit a 300-yard drive, you'll have approximately 100 yards to that location. Off target drives may be forcing a conservative second shot because you look at how guarded this location is by bunker left, bunker right, and also there's a narrow approach. So, a couple things to consider. Therefore, when I want to place a pin in this location, I make sure it's like in the meat of the available space where there's a, a generous amount of viable putting surface to that whole location. Therefore, that can reward a good second shot from a player that hit a long drive into the fairway. And then they're able to hit a good second shot, they should have an opportunity to score. At location B, you have more room on the left, but bunker penalizing anything short. C, limited space for shots that go long. Also, this area is uphill on 3 sides. That's indicated by that black line. And then location D, of the 3 locations, this location probably has the most wiggle room. However, none of these shots can be really, none of these locations is particularly easy, as I think common across the golf course. However, there are different challenges with each location, which is beneficial for player enjoyment because you change the location every other day. Every other day they can play a different golf course with a different strategy. Moving on to some notes on tee marker placement. Some guidelines for tee marker placement. The markers should be in line with each other, creating a uniform boundary. Approximately 5 paces or 15 feet should separate the tee markers, and the area between the markers should be as fresh as possible with limited recovering divots or turf, giving the golfer plenty of room to find an adequate place to tee their ball. The markers should aim at the center of the fairway for par 4s and par 5s. The markers should aim at the center of the green on par 3s. We want to be cognizant of tree lines as well. So at number 2 and 12 back tees, number 14 and number 8, we do not want to set the markers to the extreme side of the teeing area, thus creating a margin of error very limited on one side. Also, there should be a minimum of 2 club lengths between the tee markers and the back of the tee box. Remember, the golfer can set their ball anywhere behind the markers, so there should be ample room behind the markers for the golfer. And the tee markers should be based off the monuments embedded on the box. We don't want to be drastically changing the metal tees from the metal monument in the tee box. And just for your understanding, the tee marker order, the champions are the farthest back, followed by the Palmer, then the metal. The Palmer and metal receive the highest volume of play, and then honors, legends, and Laurel. The Laurel are the closest to the fairway or green. Expanding on yardage, the addition or subtraction of yardage must be compensated. So an extreme example is you move 10 of 18 metal tee markers forward 5 yards. Overall, if this movement isn't compensated on the other the other metal tee markers, you are going to be reducing the total yardage from the metal tees by 50 yards, and we want to avoid this. Furthermore, tee markers must also be moved proportionally. So on number 6, the big tee box on the left side of the cart path can hold the Palmer and metal tees. If the Palmer tees are going to be moved up 5 yards. The metal tees should also be moved up 5 yards. Number 6 is a good example as well because there's an alternate Palmer tee box and an alternate metal tee box. If the Palmer tees are moved to the right side of the cart path, the metal tees should also be moved to the right side of the cart path. A final note on tee markers is their alignment with respect to each other. So we see here on the left, this is correct where there are no tee markers within the boundary of another tee marker. If the tee markers are on the same tee box, they either are in complete alignment like you see on the left, or they're completely offset. An incorrect alignment would be what is on the right, where that forward tee marker is directly in the center of the boundary of another set of tee markers. This is a hazard to player safety and should be avoided. I'm going to wrap up this video with a brief discussion on double cutting greens. We will be going into more detail about this procedure on Monday. We use two methods of double cutting at Laurel Creek. The first is perpendicular directions. Now, for both methods, the cleanup pass procedure remains the same. We only mow our cleanup passes one time, and the importance of lifting your mower in the innermost cleanup pass is amplified here because now we're running the mower for twice as long. Okay, so all of the principles of greens mowing still apply. The only difference is we're going to be mowing the putting surface twice. So with perpendicular directions, you're either going to get 9 to 3 and 6 to 12, or 8 to 2 and 4 to 10. So this is kind of what it's going to look like. You're going to mow your 9 to 3 cut all the way across, just like we normally do. The difference with double cutting in perpendicular directions is now we're going to go back and start over, and we're going to mow the putting surface a second time in the 6 to 12 direction. All right, so we're going to be getting a little more grass, so we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on how filled our buckets get. Make sure we're emptying when they're half full. Really be cognizant of lifting the mower in your innermost cleanup passes because we will be mowing several more times than usual this week, and that's going to increase the wear on those areas. The other method to double cutting is the double pass. So with this method, we're only going to mow in one direction, so you'll only get a 9 to 3 or 6 to 12 or 8 to 2 or 4 to 10 like normal. However, what makes this the double cut is we start with our 9 to 3 pass. The difference is we return over the same cut. All right. And then we turn over here and we make our second pass across the green, and our fourth mower pass will be back over our second cut. So we're mowing each stripe twice. The whole green should be mowed in one direction, should be rolled in one direction. You won't see the striping effect. This becomes important when splitting a green. Different than striping, both mowers should start on the same side of the green so that everything is rolled in one direction. We'll be going into more detail with both these methods on the job this week. That's it for this week. Be sure to check out the Behind the Greens videos that I sent in this week's email. Great insight into the behind the scenes work done for a US Open. All right, let's have a great week.